everything?
Good. It's been so long since I've seen you.
I know.
How's it going?
Going well. I like your hair color.
Thank you.
Nice green.
Yes, yeah. My best friend here is a hairstylist, and so, you know, she
That's
just
amazing.
she just does all sorts of things to my hair. It's really great.
It's kind of like a little bit match my scarf. My scarf has like a shade, so I
Okay.
like green and uh,
Yeah.
interesting.
I
Yeah,
like
where are you now?
So I'm in Long Island City in New York.
Oh, okay.
Where are you not in New York anymore?
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn still.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So just for everybody watching, this is Fereshteh. We've known each other for a while because you were involved in cryptocurrency. And I am also involved in cryptocurrency. So there you go.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you today more about Afghanistan. So as a representative from Afghanistan. So first of all, just tell me a little bit about growing up in Afghanistan, when you came to the US, all of that stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I was born as a refugee in Iran during the Soviet invasion to Afghanistan. So my parents are from Afghanistan, from Herat. It's a city in west of Afghanistan, very close to Iran border. So I was born in a very small city near to the border of Iran and Afghanistan. I grew up in a big family, 8 siblings, and I'm the fifth one. So you can imagine how chaotic it is to be in a big family. And I think because I wasn't the oldest one and I wasn't the youngest one, so I didn't get any attention and I kind of like grew up very independent. So certainly being born as a refugee, there's a lot of challenges and discriminations and obstacles you're facing. And for me, being an Afghan refugee in Iran, denying to access education was the main obstacles. And I always believe that education is a basic fundamental human rights and you shouldn't be discriminated no matter of your background and indifferences. But I was fortunate enough that I could finish my high school in Iran. And one of the most important thing I remember being a refugee, and especially from my mom, is that she learned how to stitch and make dresses. And by selling them, she could bring income to the family and invest in our education. So seeing entrepreneurship in my mom was always inspirational for me, and kind of like thinking about like you necessarily don't need to have everything ready for you to do something, and you can be very creative and just like look around you and see what resources you have to use. um, and then we moved to Afghanistan in 2002, 1 year after the fall of Taliban. We went to Herat and I was able to get my bachelor in computer science in Herat University. And I received a scholarship. I went to Germany and I got my master's in technology and technical University of Berlin. Went back and taught as a computer science professor for about 3 years in the university. And then I did some kind of like prior like social work, especially for women, encouraging them for mainly like accessing educations. And then um, with the program that I had sponsored, I came to the US in 2012. And then in 2015, I really wanted to do something that I was always passionate, and that was about technology and coding. And I founded Code to Inspire as the first computer coding school for girls in Afghanistan, November 2015. And since then, I've been in New York City focusing on the work that I do with Code to Inspire in Afghanistan.
That's amazing. I didn't actually know all of that background.
Okay.
Especially the Germany part, I had no idea, or all the degrees that you have. So that's really lovely.
Thank
I'm glad I'm learning some stuff from you.
you.
Well, so now do you go back and forth between Afghanistan now?
Well, unfortunately, because of my immigration pending case, I'm not able to go back, because if I go back, I wouldn't be able to come back and I would be a subject of deportation. So I've done everything since 2012 when I came to the US online. But hopefully there's a little bit progress in my immigration case, and finger crossed that I would be able to go back, because I would love to go back and forth and spend a time in Afghanistan as well.
Yeah. So you haven't seen your family since what, 2012?
Yes, almost 8 years.
Okay. Oh my goodness, that's really crazy. I mean, it's hard for someone who sees their family so much to really to wrap their head around that. But I know that this is the same experience for a lot of people who immigrate to the U.S. So,
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so from what you're hearing, you still talk to your family quite a bit, yeah?
Yes, I do.
From what you're hearing in terms of how they're dealing with the pandemic, are things going all right over there?
Well, I think it's more or less the same as other countries that they initially faced with the COVID and the pandemic. But there's certainly a lot of layers of different challenges, especially when you talk about more countries who've been still struggling with conflict. There's a little bit war in some areas and the lack of infrastructure. So it's certainly more difficult to handle. When it happened, actually, the first city that got hit was Herat, the city that I'm from, and it's in west of Afghanistan, very close to Iran border. And the reason was that, well, Iran got the it was got hit very bad first in Iran, and then unfortunately, because the border was open and the government really didn't take actions in case of closing the border or testing people who come from Iran border. So that's how it spread it. And Herat was the first city who got hit, and it was really like kind of like New York City in US, who was the epicenter of the pandemic. Um, so it was definitely difficult because there wasn't any test kits for the people to have it, and there were a lot of people who were uneducated about it, who were careless about it, and they really didn't believe that it's gonna like really affects your life and everything. But we were really cautious because of the school and the classes, and
Okay.
it was early April that it really like got very the situation got very bad, and then we closed the schools, and the local government also forced a lot of educational institutes and other places to close their activities. So we closed the school since mid-March, early April, and then we just opened the school 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But we're very cautious about all the like a healthy concerns about the students and the staff.
Yeah, how many kids do you have, or kids is maybe the wrong term, young adults do you have in your school right now?
So the number of the students that we have at the school, we've educated so far about 250 in total, but right now we have about 100 students that before COVID, they used to come to school in person because the classes were in person, and we had classes in different timeline of the day. They usually come after their classes in the university. But with the COVID, we closed the school and then we shifted all of our classes online. So we used YouTube or the Telegram messaging apps or Facebook. And we bought actually internet packages for our students because a lot of them didn't have it, so that they can keep up with the classes.
Gotcha. Okay, so I want to shift gears just a little bit. I know we've talked about this before, but if we were both together in Afghanistan, what would be a good day? What would we do? What sights would we see?
Well, I haven't been there for like 8 years, so I'm pretty
Right.
sure there's a lot of great things that happening in my city and other cities. But I can definitely say that like we Afghans are very famous for being for the hospitality and being very warm to the guests. So the first thing that we definitely do, either for people we've never met and we invite them, is to give them some tea, either green tea or black tea. And we love feeding our guests, so we definitely would love to cook foods for them. And in my city, I mean, like if we were together in Herat, there's a lot of beautiful places to show. There's the famous cathedral mosque that it's been from the Timurid era. It's one of, we can call it like the renaissance of that time for Herat, and it's very beautiful. There's also a lot of other different places that are very ancient and beautiful in case of architect that I could take you to. And of course, food. I mean, there's a lot of amazing places to have food and sightseeing places. So I think you would definitely enjoy it. And I also would love to take you to a typical wedding so that you can see the differences, because here like usually the weddings are not it probably 50 to 100 people, I think, maybe. But there is just like a couple of hundred people, like 500, 600.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yes, it's totally a different style. So I think that would be a great experience for you to be part of the wedding too.
Yeah, and I'm sure, is there like a particular style of dress that people wear to weddings?
Yes, I definitely like the traditional outfit that we have for women and men. So it's usually like happens now that like they change their outfit a couple of times, but usually it's like one is like wearing the traditional outfit, and then the other is more kind of like a modern, kind of like Western style with the white dress and the groom with the suit. So yeah, definitely you see a lot of traditional outfits.
That's cool. And then in terms of food, what's your favorite traditional Afghan food?
Well, from the city that I'm from, I can say khichdi, which is a rice with meat. And it's in a very particular style they cook it, and it's very famous there. But certainly Afghan cuisine, it's a lot of meat and rice involved. So we have different kinds of it. And also like, for example, Kabuli, it's another style of the meat and rice, which is very popular in north of Afghanistan.
Okay.
And ashag or mantu, they kind of like the dumplings, but the
Oh.
stuffing and the dressing is a bit different.
Okay, all right. And then so you gave me some sites, so I'll have to look them up on Google Street View because that's how I'm currently traveling now.
Right.
It's Google Street View, which has been pretty great to be fair. To see all these places that I didn't even know existed, you know, it's really quite neat. Um, but have you traveled much around Afghanistan besides where you grew up?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I'm definitely, because of the security reason and being a woman, I wasn't really like able to travel much. Wish I could, I was, because there's a lot of beautiful places that I see the pictures and I'm like, wow, I would love to be there. But I traveled to Kabul, the capital,
Okay.
and either for conferences or work purpose, or just like going for like family trips. And I really love Kabul too. It's a beautiful, it's very mountainous, and the city is surrounded by mountains, and people have a lot of houses on the hills. And it's kind of reminded me also of New York City, because it's very crowded and everyone is just like has a lot of energy to go after whatever work they do. So it's definitely very different from Herat, the city that I'm from. But I love Kabul. I always enjoy my time there.
Okay, I'll have to look up that too. That sounds kind of exciting to be around all these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, or at least see them on my computer.
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, so and we've definitely talked about this before, and you know, we don't have to get into every historical moment, but you had talked about sort of there's a lot of fighting, or there has been a lot of fighting in Afghanistan. Like, you know, for people who don't keep up with that quite as much, like where is a lot of that now?
Well, I mean, it depends. I also like want to mention that like most of the time people that like Afghanistan is a total war zone, and like
Mhm.
there's conflict and war everywhere, but it's not like that. There's certainly certain areas that do have more kind of like impact because of the influence of either it's Taliban or the extremists or the ISIS, any kind of like radical groups that are against the government. So the presence, they may have more presence. And I can say like, well, in any city around Afghanistan, in suburbs, probably there are some presence of the Taliban, but I can say like maybe a little bit in southeast would be a little bit more the presence of the Taliban and the extremists who do have more power, that they can like operate more kind of like operations against the government.
Right. And so you sort of touched on this there, but what is one stereotype about Afghanistan or about Afghan people that you would like to combat?
I think the definitely the this gray image of Afghanistan being like a totally war zone, and not a lot of like progress happen, and like, you know, women are like miserable there. So I don't want to like deny the fact that there are certainly issues, but when I came to the US and when I talked to people and I said I'm from Afghanistan and I have a master's degree in technology, a lot of them couldn't believe that a woman from Afghanistan is educated, is having a master's degree and being able to travel. So that was certainly something that was bothering me, because even until now, there's still, when I deal with people, they do have still the same understanding. And I think that unfortunately, the major media played a role in it, and bad news always, I think, has more viewers, and so they, for selling their news, they used always the bad stories in the war and violation while using wars and all these kind of like dark issues and images about Afghanistan. And also, like, on the other hand, I think people are not really open-minded in a way to read more, or like just not rely on one like outlet of the news or resources, and just like like explore more. And that's how you kind of like give that image of Afghanistan. But there's a lot of beauty in Afghanistan that it's hidden and not a lot of people know about it. There's been a lot of progress happened in Afghanistan in any sector you can name it. And the fact that like with the school that I have, we can educate all these girls and all of them can find jobs within the community, can help their community. It's a key and a factor to show that like progress has happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah, totally. So the school is in Herat, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I also have construction going on, so I'm gonna like, sorry.
No,
I'm gonna try to ask questions like in between that and then mute
okay.
myself. But okay, well, so based on what you're hearing from the girls at your school, has there, to sort of combat more this idea that women can't be educated there or they're miserable all the time, like what kind of jobs are those women getting that you're teaching in that school?
Sure. Well, we offer different classes. We offer classes in mobile application, game design, graphic design, web development. And recently we also added a blockchain crypto class to our curriculum, which we're very excited to. So we graduated about 100 students from all these classes. And with the data that we have, about 60 to 70% of them actually found job within the community with what we taught them. And for us, that was such an eye-opening process, because the only reason is that they didn't access equal resources. And that was the reason that they couldn't compete in the job market, and they had a strong resume to show to the companies. So that's certainly something that was very eye-opening for us to explore. And even we've outsourced about 20 projects from mainly US to the girls, and they do the work virtually. And it was worth about like $20,000. We were talking about the girls who get paid like $50 to $400. And the average monthly income salary in Afghanistan is about 150. So some of them actually made double or triple than the men in the family. So the fact that a woman can access equal resources and learn a skill that can translate into employment opportunities and money, that can be a big change, because now they have a voice in the family. Their family see a value in them, and that's like more like a grassroots kind of like level of change. You start within the family, and then within the your surrounding friends and relatives, and then the community, and in a bigger way within the country. So so we see a lot of good feedback from the community within these 5 years. First of all, there was some pushbacks and people couldn't believe that. But now with all the works that our girls have done, we really see a good feedback and welcome from the community, and especially men within the community.
That's really amazing. Yeah, because so 2015, correct?
Yes.
So about 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Amazing. Okay. Well, and so I also wanted to ask about what I want to ask about sort of the news. And obviously the news, you're right, like bad things sell, war sells, all of that. Is there a news publication that you read or have seen that you think offers a more nuanced look at Afghanistan?
Oh, that's a good question. To be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, like, I also try to diversify as much as I can, looking at different outlets and publishers. But I also like, I think I personally like Twitter. It's just because, like, you see the news outlet that you follow, but you also see, like, personal opinions and people who maybe have experience about that topic. So you see different aspects and angles. And that's sometimes very overwhelming because you just like go and then you spend like a big chunk amount of your time, you know, just browsing and get caught into these and reading. But I think that's like how I try to manage to have like some sources which from publications, but also have like people's opinion about the issue and go around it. And again, like it's overwhelming, so I try to manage my time and not really like get caught a lot on that. But yeah, I think Twitter is the best source that, or the might go-to place for if there's an trending topic or something that I want to learn more. I just like go through the comments and the opinions of people.
So this is, sorry, tutor?
Twitter.
Oh, Twitter,
Yes,
Twitter.
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, wait, it's because the construction though too. So I'm like
No,
banging,
yeah.
and then I'm like, what is this app? No, Twitter. Yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter is great. Also terrible in many ways, but great in some ways.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's true.
sure. Okay, well, we'll end here pretty shortly, but I wanted to ask, like, what is your favorite travel experience? Because I know you bounce around quite a bit too, with your job and just with life. So yeah, tell me about that.
Well, I like mountains, so and hiking. So like if I come across any place that there's like good hiking place, I like that. And it's interesting because I went to Boulder for a couple of times in Colorado, so I really like the mountains there, and it's kind of like reminds me of Herat because where in general Afghanistan is a very mountainous country, but Herat has a lot of mountain, especially outside of the city. So when I'm there, it's kind of like reminded me of Herat. So I feel kind of like home about it. And there's actually an interesting tea house there too called Doshambe, which has a lot of tea selections, and I really like it. So it's kind of like remind me of home, and it's just like good for me to walk, but also like to kind of like meditate and kind of like put my thoughts together. So I think I'm more like a person who, if I want to travel, I would love to like find a space in like mountains and just like take my time.
I feel that. As you know, I moved back to New York from Colorado. I spent about a year in Colorado, and that is one thing I miss. I love New York and want to live here, but just being in the mountains all the time, I definitely miss that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we should hang out very soon. I know that
Yeah.
New York is, well, I don't know. It's like hectic still, but it's not too bad. So yeah, let's get together. But thank you so much for coming on and just chatting with me about Afghanistan. That was really great.
You're welcome. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for taking your time. And yeah, we should definitely hang out soon.
totally. Okay. Well, I will hit you up about that. And then otherwise, I will let you get back to your day. So thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right.
Thank you. Bye bye.